What's up, guys? Ruben the Tailor from Mouth Guard Out podcast. Guess what? We got a special episode, but let's do this. Let's jump into the intro and go from there. Peace.
Step into the ring, yeah, we call that fight life. Yeah. Mouth Guard Out podcast where we shine that bright light. Ruben the Tailor is doing it up so clean. MMA fighters, every champ on the scene.
What's up, guys? Ruben the Tailor from Mouth Guard Out podcast coming at you with another quick podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For everybody that actually watches and listens to the show. The format's a little bit different today because we were supposed to have a guest and they canceled, but that's okay. Since July was coming up, I said, you know what? Since we don't have a guest, let me jump in here. Let me talk to the Mouth Guard Out podcast audience. Hopefully everybody's doing well. It's a little weird not having somebody in front of me, but guess what? We got an impromptu. What's going on, guys? Ruben the Tailor in the house. What I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about what I've learned about interviewing MMA fighters. And as you guys see, it's a very diverse platform here. I mean, we've had males, we've had females, we've had pros, we've had amateurs, we've had announcers. As a matter of fact, we're in the talks right now, actually getting more announcers on here, which is great. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun coming on here, being the host. The great thing about it is now every time we go to like fights, you know, people are starting to recognize us. But so I appreciate you guys doing that for us, guys, and I appreciate all the fighters and everybody that's coming in here. But let's get into it, guys. I don't know if this is going to be a regular schedule thing that I do all the time, but I just wanted to talk about what I've learned in the past year and a half of actually interviewing people, especially fighters. And like I mentioned, I've interviewed a bunch of fighters out there. We actually had to get a new candle because every time we have a podcast, I light this candle up. Labo, the ladies know what this is because every time we have a lady in the actual show, we'll give them a candle. Labo, sponsor the show. Pellegrino, sponsor the show. Where you at? But really quick, guys, my whole podcast, the whole purpose of the podcast, I should say, Mouth Guard Out podcast, was to expose or basically open up communication between these fighters. You know, one thing that I've noticed is fighters fight, and that's what they do, and that's what they do really good, and that's the reason why they're fighting. But a lot of fighters don't have the interview skills, you know, to go out there and maybe do an interview. You know, a lot of these fighters want to, you know, go out to bigger things, you know, UFC, Bellator, you know, Invicta, whatever the case may be. But I found the opportunity, being in the industry that I am, is to allow these fighters to speak more, or to talk more, or basically, you know what I'm saying, brand themselves. And hopefully, you know, my platform, and I know there's a lot of platforms out there that do the same thing, but hopefully my platform is something that I can help more fighters in the future. You know, I want somebody to look up, hey, I'm going to be fighting the guy, Ruben the Tailor. So they look you up on, you know, on social media. They look you up. It's like, oh, this guy's been on a podcast. You know, he's very, very humble, very down to earth. You know, I'm sorry, I'm still doing all the technical stuff here, but very down to earth. And hell yeah, it's something that I would want to, with somebody I would want to fight. Or a lot of times, you know, promoters or different, I don't know if they're called avenues or promotions. You know, they can look at, you know, everybody that's on the podcast and say, you know what, I like this person. They know how to speak. You know, I'm starting to tap into a little bit of their personal life, you know, what they like, what to eat. You know, like one of the famous questions that we ask on the podcast is, if you were to fight a Ninja Turtle, and then that's one of the most popular questions that we always get. Who would you fight? Me personally, I would probably fight. The thing is, I don't know how to fight, so it doesn't matter who I fight. But if I were to fight somebody, I think I got to go Donatello, because Donatello is everybody chooses him for some reason. So Donatello, we're sorry, man, we're coming after you. But one of the things that I've learned, and I've had many fighters, and what I'm going to do real quick, guys, is I'm going to possibly even talk about each fighter that's been on here. That makes sense. So if I don't bring up your name, with all due respect, you know, it's not that I didn't want to talk about you. It's just a lot of fighters were on here. One of my main fighters, what the actual podcast, what started it all was with Kim Peterson, the killer, Panda, Valiant Training Center. What's going on, Kim? How you doing? She was my first guest, and that's one of the biggest things is I wanted to see what this platform was. How did it work? Because I've never interviewed anybody before. I'm in sales. I do presentations. I do public speaking. I do a bunch of stuff like that. So I say, you know what? Why don't I take my skills and apply that, and hopefully I can help fighters or people that are in the community. I know I sound redundant here, but I started off with Kim Peterson. The great thing about Kim is the fact that she was our personal trainer at Valley Training Center. If you guys are familiar with her, she was our trainer. Or she still is, because she does the boxing classes and I'm in her classes. But she came in and I said, you know what, can we do a podcast on you? She had just came off of a 2-win streak. She's 2-0. And I said, you know what, or let me rephrase that. She was the first introduction into MMA for me. My wife and I, it's like, you hear the Conor McGregors, you see, all the stuff on UFC, but, for us, joining the training center and just, going into to actually, to get fit or get healthier, I guess, for loss of better words, it was to the point where I see, or in this case, I saw her growing up in the fight community. And I remember one day we actually went in there and there was a poster of her on the wall that she was going to fight. And I'm like, my wife and I looked at each other's like, why does that look like Kim? And sure enough, guess what? She had her fight. And then after that, she had another fight. So congratulations to your wins. But that gave me a found respect for fighters. And the reason I say that is because they train to fight. They put their body through a lot of heat, I guess, for less of better words, a lot of pain, a lot of endurance, they basically beat their bodies up. And for her, and I'm just specifically speaking about her right now, for her to go from trainer to fighter, I realized there's a switch there. And if you guys watch the show, that's one of the biggest things I bring up. What is that switch? What makes you turn on and says, I'm a fighter now? And what's funny is we went to her fights. After we went to her fight and her other fight, the very next week, she's back at work, in this case, the training center training, like nothing ever happened. Now she's back to business as usual. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned a lot about a lot of fighters is they are regular people that have jobs, regular people that are in the community for training for MMA, for jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, whatever the case may be. And I noticed they have a switch they can turn on, when it comes to their fighting and all that. And that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to uncover or untap. I need to know that switch. A lot of times we use our switch in a different way. Everybody has different types of emotions. Some people use the switch for good. Some people use the switch for bad. Some people use the switch to help other people. And that's one of I guess that's my switch is I want to help individuals to go out there and become more successful in the actual sport of MMA or whatever the case may be. But that switch is what intrigued me to say, you know what? I want to learn more about that switch. And that's one of the main questions that I ask a lot of the fighters that are here. What makes you, or what's that switch that turns you on to say, I'm fighting tomorrow, and guess what? I might get my face kicked in or my face punched in, but at the end of the day, I'm still that person once I'm done. And I still can't get an answer. And which is funny is every time I ask a fighter, it's like, I can't get an answer. I can't get a straight answer from these fighters, but it's okay. It's okay. If it's a secret, keep it a secret. Because if for some reason it's something that's trained in you that you can't tell nobody, that's okay. What's that saying? There's certain secrets that you want to keep to yourself, right? But at this time, I'm just, wanted to bring that up. But that's the switch that I started discovering that a lot of fighters have. And I think I have it in me, but it's for, I guess, good, not evil. I'm just playing with you guys. But yeah, another thing that I've learned about fighters or the fighters that I've interviewed is the fact that they're very determined. And the reason I say that is I know some of the majority of the fighters that I have in here were amateur. And I didn't know that they didn't get paid. I know they have their sponsors and all that, but even the coaches, like Jeff, the administrator, Peterson, every time one of the fighters are at a fight, he's there, he's coaching, and he's like, whoa, trying to make them better because he was better already. For you guys that know Jeff, the administrator, Peterson, a man, a great fighter. I've never had the pleasure of seeing him fight live, but obviously I've seen his fights on YouTube and videos and all that. Great fighter. I have a lot of respect for that man right there. Plus he was a Marine, so hoorah, there you go. That helps a lot too. You're on my list. But these guys that are amateurs, they're and please don't take my words and misconstrue them, because you guys might want to fight me after in the cage, but there's a determination there that is free. And what I mean by that is the determination they have is they're putting a lot of work into their resume, but at the end of the day, they're not getting paid to do what they're doing. Now, obviously, once you go pro and once you go to a big promotion like UFC or whatever, yes, that's when the money starts coming in. But, compared to fighters that I've talked to in the past, I said, it's right now, it's not a lot to make a living, especially if you're amateur. But I think that's the type of motivation that a lot of people need, because, and I've said this before, is success is not like Amazon. You go on Amazon, you order something, you'll either get it the same day, the next day, or whatever, express delivery. And what's happening now is a lot of people have that Amazon mentality. They want to become the next YouTube sensation. They want to, whatever the case may be, they want to open up a business and they think the next day they're going to be rich from it and whatever. And I'm like, no, but that's another thing that I've learned about these fighters is, I'm going to call it patience. They're investing, they're putting their mind, their body, on the line, their health on the line for that patience to eventually one day become successful. And I think that type of trait has been, what am I trying to say here, has been forgotten in this industry because of social media, because of YouTube, whatever, TikTok, whatever's out there. There's a lot of people out there that get lucky and become a success overnight. You get you post a video and it goes viral. Obviously, yes, you're going to have what's called that 15 minutes of fame. But at the end, your body still hurts. You're bruised, you're cut up, you might be injured, and I've seen these fighters that are across the desk from me, or the table, I should say, and they go through a lot. Not to bring up Tina the Predator Pettigrew, but she had mentioned her eye socket got broken. I'm like, oh my God. But they still continue. And that's the drive that I see in these fighters. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if you ever heard this saying before, but if you get knocked down, learn how to get up and learn how to fighter. That's the mentality of these fighters. I mean, even with me, I get beaten down, not necessarily in a fight, but in my career, in the world, in my life, and anything that goes on. And I know how to get up and clean myself off and keep going. I'm not saying that I'm the best at everything that I do. No, absolutely not. But I find myself connecting with these fighters, because even though I don't fight, I connect with them. And that's part of the reason why this podcast has been so successful, because I'm coming from a place of, for you guys that know, I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for a long time. And, there's certain things that you learn in the military that you apply in civilian life. And that's what I'm doing here. And some of these guys have never been in the military, but just through their training, their fighting, their grit, I feel like they've been in the military. I know we have a couple that were in the military. Alberto El Philly Trujillo, he was in the Navy. David Momo Morales, he was in the Navy as well. We had Angel Superman Ramirez, he was in the Army. And obviously Jeff Peterson, the administrator, he was in the Marine Corps. So I see the leadership that these guys have to go out there and be successful. But like I mentioned, even the guys that haven't been in the military, I see that, and I think it exudes it from their coaches. Like for example, we had Daniel Reyes here, and congratulations, man. He won Epic 60. But the thing is, I see Daniel Reyes as a great fighter, but I look behind him as well. Behind them was their coaches. And one of the coaches, like I just mentioned, was Tina, the Predator Pettigrew. She has a reflection of Daniel Reyes. She has the epic, the championship belt. She has the Camel State belt. Man. So I believe that Daniel Reyes is a reflection of their coaches. El Philly, oh man, cool, man. What's up, guys? Hopefully everybody is good out there. But anyway, I know I sound like I'm rambling, and feel free to turn off this video if you'd like. But I've learned a lot. I learned a lot. Obviously, I wish I can, and I don't like saying the word I wish I could have a little bit more insight. I know I only have, a limited amount of time with these fighters here, but I wish I can go behind the scenes and see what they can do, what they do. Now, what they can, I already know what they can do, what they do, as far as waking up in the morning, what they eat, some of the challenges, that they have, because for me, that's motivating. For me, that's motivating because I've said this before. I'm never going to fight. I train in boxing, but in no way do I say I'm a boxer. I wish I could say I'm a boxer, but I'm not. I know how to box other things. I know how to box UPS, FedEx, and all this other stuff. So that's the type of boxing that I like. I'm just playing. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And another thing that I've learned from fighters is obviously the discipline. The discipline. I know these fighters don't want to get up early. I know these fighters don't want to diet. I know these fighters don't want to cut weight, whatever, but that's a lot of discipline. And this is why these fighters are where they are. You see what I'm saying? I love interviewing not just a fighter that's 20-0. I like interviewing fighters that are starting off. I love interviewing fighters that are pro, or because it gives me a perspective on both sides. Okay, the person that's pro obviously eventually started off as an amateur. Started off as aspiring to fight. And I don't know if the coaches said, "Hey, you guys want to fight?" And then eventually they moved on to where they moved on, which is great. But I don't know. It's kind of very interesting to me, and I'm glad to be part of this. Like I mentioned earlier, we're starting to be recognized in the fight community. We go to Dan Henderson, everybody knows, hey, what's up, Ruben? Navajo Joe, Sarah Valencia. We're traveling now to actually go see fighters, and my goal to go see you guys is to support you. A couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago, my wife and I actually drove up to San Bernardino. Never been there, but I went there to see Sarah Valencia La Traviesa fight. And yeah, she didn't win. Okay, she didn't win. But the thing is, the support and love that I have for all these fighters, it didn't matter if she won or lost. I was there to support her. I was there to give her that extra voice in the crowd to cheer her on, especially with all the other fighters as well. I've been to, Jaden Little Mac Longoria. I went to go see him. Obviously, I went to go see Kim. I went to go see Daniel Reyes, Ruby Daniels, all those fighters, man, all those fighters. So I definitely appreciate the hard work that you guys do. All I can do is give you guys a platform to expose yourself or express yourself, and hopefully you guys are able to use this platform as a stepping stone into your next venture. It doesn't matter if it's continue fighting, maybe be an announcer. I know Tina Pettigrew had mentioned she's been an announcer a couple times, but those are the little stepping stones that you can do to actually grow in this business or in this industry. It's technically it is a business, but it's more the industry that these fighters are in. Same thing, for example. Now let me talk about non-fighters. Like for example, we had Kaz Egan on here. Kaz Egan. I remember seeing Kaz Egan every time at the fights. I'm like, who is this tall 6'7" guy in the suit? Well, guess what, man? I see these guys announcing, going, on tour, for lots of better words, because he doesn't just announce for MMA. He also does Monster Jam. He does the San Diego Goals. He also does Bingo Loco. Look that up. And he also does Lake Elsinore Storm. And there's probably other things out there that he does as well. But there has to be a passion for what you do. And in this case, Kaz Egan's passion is announcing and bringing people out. So at the same time, not that I'm comparing myself to an announcer, or not that I'm comparing myself to the level where Kaz is, but he's there to help people. I know it's a job, it's something that you have to do, but he's there to help people. Not only to hype them up, but make sure they introduce them right and make sure they get their stats right. Inside joke, you know what I'm talking about, Kaz. But yeah. So I really enjoy this community because everybody's here to help each other, from the coaches, from the social medias, the promotions, the gyms, the venue. Everybody's here to do a part in this industry to help these fighters to go out there and become something. And hopefully one day I can look on TV or look on YouTube and say, boom, that person was on the podcast. So I am proud to say I had them on here. And, they give me time. They give me a little piece of themselves to go out there and let us know who they are before they get to the next level, basically, for lots of better words. But, oh, man, what else have I learned? I've learned a lot from these fighters and the people that are on here. Very humble people. That's another thing that I've learned. Very humble people. Now I know, and I've experienced this from experience as well. There's a lot of cocky people out there as well, and but it's okay. It's okay. But I would say the majority of the people that I've known, especially the ones that have been on the show, are very humble. They want to help. They want to help as well. So this is why when Jeff, contacts these fighters, hey, we want you on the podcast. They're like, yes, what do I have to do? Do I have to do this? Do I have to dress up? Do I have to have, no, don't worry about it. I take care of all that. So when they're here, I make them feel at home. And hopefully all the fighters that have been on the show, you can actually see all the signatures right here. Look at this. Oh my God. I remember this tabletop being blank, and now we have a series of legends and fighters on here. We want to get more on here. But they're very humble and they're willing to help. Now, as far as willing to help, let me tell you a little bit more of our backstory or behind the scenes is to do this production is a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And one thing, like the amateur fighters, we're doing this for free. I'm not doing this for money, and I'm not trying to get paid from this. Obviously, you hear me saying Pellegrino sponsor the show. Yeah, if we can get something like that, that would be amazing. But all this stuff costs money, guys. The SEO on the videos, the editing, doing the, what is it called? The promo, the shorts and all that. All this costs time and money, guys. So a lot of times when these fighters cancel on me at the last minute, literally the last minute, it really takes a toll on not just me, but the show. You see what I'm saying? And that's another reason I want to learn that switch. So not that I don't want to give a F, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is, okay, there's only so much I can do. I can't force you to be here. I can't tell you I can. I wish I can pay these fighters to be here, but the same way the amateur fighters don't get paid, I don't get paid to do anything. You know what I'm saying? I'm just here, again, to provide a platform for these fighters to maybe, excel, just even that little ounce of push, to excel them just a little bit more. I did my job. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast is so I can help. And that's what it is. And my wife does the social media. So if you guys follow us on Mouth Guard Out Podcast on Instagram, my wife does all that. I do all the editing, all the sound engineering, all the lighting, everything. The interviews, I come up with all the questions. So hopefully every fighter that's been on here has had a great time and, has shared. And that's one of the things I love when people share, because I can actually look on there and see how many times your video or any videos that has been shared. And it's exciting for me. And for me, that's my paycheck. That's for me to say, you know what? Yes, these fighters are using me to go out there and excel. And as long as they're doing that, as long as they can get something else, by all means, go for it. Even if they get a sponsor. Now, if you guys also want to sponsor, guys, we follow all the fighters on Instagram that are on the show. If you guys want to follow them and maybe reach out to them and give them a sponsorship or do even just a one sponsor deal for a fight, these guys need your help. I remember speaking to Superman Ramirez. He's a great fighter, But the thing is, his big thing is like looking for sponsors. And there's only so much I can do. I've donated to sponsors. I've never really sponsored a fighter, but I've donated to fighters because I understand your gasoline, your hotel, your food. They're called expenses. The same way we have expenses here, the same way there's expenses out there. Man, it's hot as hell in here. Woo, man, it's probably the suit. But anyway, guys, not to ramble on, I just wanted to come in here. I probably wanted to do a quick 20-minute video on what I've learned interviewing MMA fighters. I've learned a lot. And one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to quit. But in order for me not to quit, I need more fighters on here. If you guys want to be on the show, make sure you contact Low Kick Combat Sports Management. That's Jeff, the administrator, Peterson. You can actually see him on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to him. A lot of the fighters actually also referred fighters to us the other day. Tina Pettigrew, she goes, hey, we have this fighter that's fighting in August. Let's get him on the show. I appreciate all that, guys, because that's just little things that I don't have to worry about when it comes to getting the show ready. But the only favor that I ask for all the fighters that come on here, please don't cancel. Please don't cancel because I'm up early in the morning. I mean, the other day we did Ruby Daniels right after her epic win. And Bob Daniels, I believe is her manager. Can we do it at 9 o'clock in the morning? Because they had an event to do that afternoon. I said, yeah, I don't care if it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Let's do it. And she came in here, which was the last podcast, Ruby Daniels, and we promoted her, and then she even went to KFL and won that fight as well. So my goal here, again, guys, is to help, but at the same time, you got to help us by showing up. If you guys can refer fighters to us, even better. But that's it, guys. There's probably more stuff on there, but I want to go ahead and wrap up because I don't want this to be too long of a boring video, right? But guys, thank you so much. Please follow us on Instagram at MouthGuard Podcast. Just hit a follow. Feel free to go on there and say, what's up, Ruben? What up to Tailor? And then my wife also handles all that. But guys, if you guys are interested, feel free to reach out to us. Guys, thank you so much. I'm having a great time with this podcast. All I want to do is grow the podcast and I don't know, maybe do bigger and better things, maybe do announcing at the fights. As a matter of fact, check this out, guys. Whoa, I'm already ready. Look at this. I got my interview microphone ready, and it does say MouthGuard Out Podcast on there too. So, guys, thank you so much. Once again, this is Ruben the Tailor from MouthGuard Out Podcast. Thank you so much. See you guys soon. Peace.